region pronunciation for stuff. So I sound like, a laid back Kansai region dude.
Welcome to That Japanese Thing. Today we're talking about the movie Bubble, a film from 2022 made by Netflix. Not to be confused with the film The Bubble, also made by Netflix in 2022.
But not an anime.
This is That Japanese Thing. My name is Chris. Today with me is Dylan Yish. How are you doing, guys?
Hi,
Doing
what in
well?
yourself?
Not too bad. Yeah, I can't complain too much. I made like a weird kind of German Asian thing today, where I made bao buns, but I made them as if they were like German stolen cake, and then I put marzipan inside them instead of like anpan kind of stuff.
Fusion.
Yeah, it was pretty delicious.
Did you do the Dragon Ball Z fusion dance?
No, I would have had to have someone to dance with.
You could have danced with your bao.
That's true. It couldn't get it right though. Would have been a strange fusion. Ended up looking like Boo probably.
Yep.
So we watched the film Bubble.
Mm-hmm. So I do want to add some detail. It was produced by Warner Brothers. It was animated by Wit Studio. Wit Studio recently having gotten from Warner as well the rights to Suicide Squad.
Is it Suicide Squad or is it a Harley Quinn isekai?
It's Suicide Squad.
Okay.
Yeah, its current name is Suicide Squad Isekai.
Right. Okay.
But it has references to the Joker, Harley. There's a few more of the rest of the squad as well.
How do you feel about that? I think there is nothing I want to see less than this.
I have watched the Batman Became a Samurai anime.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it was not good.
No, it wasn't.
But I am glad I saw it.
It wasn't a waste of my time to watch that particular movie. It was over the top and like really cheesy, but I appreciated it for the weird little monster it was.
Indeed. Exactly how I feel.
I don't know if I'd feel the same about the Suicide Squad.
I mean,
but we can watch it and see.
We can watch it and see. I do want to say that the script is by Teppei Nagatsuki, ReZero's author.
yeah. I mean, that's not a selling point,
He does characters very well, in my opinion. Maybe he doesn't do a long-term story that great, but he does characters in a very good way, in my opinion.
I just don't want to, it's an isekai as well, and I just don't want to, it's a movie, right? It's not a series.
It is an ONA, so it's a single episode movie kind of thing.
So provided it's not 3 hours long, I will give it a go, because I just don't want to be tortured for longer.
Yeah, I mean, if it was like a 12 episode anime or something, I wouldn't.
I would be
even touch
wary,
it.
man, because that ReZero for me was brutal. That was hard.
I'm not put off by the author or anything. It's just the concept. I think also, I mean, they did some cool things. This author as well is kind of semi-responsible for Isekai Quartet, right?
Correct.
So I mean, they've kind of done that already in the realm of anime. It would be cooler, I think, if they just kind of integrated some Warner Brothers characters into Isekai Quartet. I would rather have that any day of the week than some Harley Quinn Suicide Squad Isekai thing.
So, some of the directors, specifically the people leading for action, did JoJo's, Jujutsu Kaisen, and a couple of other things.
Yeah, I mean, it looked good. The animation quality looked good. It's just the concept that it's like a weird cash grabby thing.
Maybe I'll bounce off of the story, but I've read these comics for decades now. I've seen multiple iterations of every hero. Seeing a new iteration of some of the bad guys just can't be that bad of a thing.
Maybe it'll spawn something terrible or delightful.
Japanese Spider-Man was incredible.
No,
I'd
it
say
was
first off the
it was
wall and
awful.
see how it goes.
It was really awful. The reason people know about it is because of how awful it was.
Japanese Spider-Man gave us the spider buggy and stuff. It had great moments in it.
But the reason people know about it, Yesh, outside of like people in Japan, is just because they make fun of it. It's not as if people are legitimately enjoying it.
I'm not
That
sure.
is the entire reason we know about it.
Fair enough.
Anyway, we're not talking about that. We're talking about Bubble.
Indeed,
We
Bubble,
watched it at
2022.
Yesh's suggestion. Mostly because we didn't have time to watch the second half of Fate Zero.
Which we will get back to, but maybe. in a bit.
Yeah, I mean, Yesh is moving to Chicago, so we're not entirely sure how we're going to do that.
I mean, there are ways of streaming things. We just got to get the time zoning right. But
Get
Yesh never
like an
sleeps.
iPad and just
I mean, Yesh doesn't sleep, so it should be fairly easy.
we could arrange it somehow. Anyway, this was pretty good, I thought, for something we just put together really quickly. And I remember when it came out, I thought I'd watch it, but I kind of hate watching movies unless I'm doing it as like a group activity. So yeah, I just never did, but I'm glad we eventually got around to it. There's not too much story. It's actually, well, it kind of feels like to me. It kind of feels like a continuation of the Tokyo is sinking meme, which seems to be going around.
And it feels like we've seen a few things involving Tokyo suffering a massive.
So
problem.
it was Weathering with You, right?
Weathering with You began the flooding, but then there was also a full anime called Tokyo is Sinking.
Japan sinks? I think it was Japan sinks.
Maybe it's Japan Sinks.
Yeah.
And then that was after Japan is underwater, How to Survive, and now this one, a strange and mysterious event occurred that made bubbles fall from the sky. And in Tokyo in particular, they all concentrated, forming a super bubble that flooded Tokyo.
There is some sort of Japanese bubble metaphor to be had there, but I'm not entirely sure what it is, really. I think
There's certainly some kind of message in this, but I will say, from my perspective, everything's a little scattershot.
no, it's just a bunch of things. I think someone just thought that was a funny pun, the Tokyo bubble thing, right? Because
Quite possibly.
in the Japanese bubble we would say in the West, but it was about Tokyo property prices. That's what burst the bubble, right? And in this, Tokyo's property prices are completely destroyed because no one can live in Tokyo anymore because
No
it's
one can
underwater.
live in Tokyo anymore. Yeah.
So actually,
which-
like in the end of the movie, like when the bubble bursts, it's a good thing, kind of.
Yeah, because people start moving into Tokyo again.
Yeah. Sorry, we spoiled the whole movie.
Well, we were
no,
going
no,
to talk about
it's-
the movie
it's,
anyways.
it's-
So, let's just go over the basic elements of the movie then, just quickly.
Oh no! But wait. So just before I forget, right? So there was that pun, which I'm sure is incorporated somewhere into the author, and then there was just Little Mermaid stuff. Specifically, not the Disney Little Mermaid, the actual story of the Little Mermaid, the Hans Christian Andersen Little Mermaid thing. And
With illustrations from the German novel as well.
yeah, and I'm not sure if it was directly from that one, although it does seem
Quite Germanic,
similar,
always say.
like animified kind of versions of it. And the last thing was parkour. Those are
Indeed.
the things that make up this movie.
So, like we were saying, a little bit shotgun, scattershot. Lots of ideas ended up in this. It feels like somebody was very excited about the idea or the sport of parkour and wanted a way to fit it into a movie. So
Well-
they flooded Tokyo to make it so that you can't travel on the ground.
I think me and Dylan were saying it's kind of like this was done during COVID times, and no one could actually directly be in the same room to speak about the plot together. And none of the writers were actually speaking to each other for some reason, and there are three of them. So one guy's like, I want a parkour movie. I was like, I want a nice romance movie. And was like, I want a weird alien movie about bubbles.
It definitely couldn't decide what it wanted to be. I have a different take, which is that like they wanted to have certain artistic elements, and they built a story to try and hold those elements together. And the story, so the story is the weakest part by far for me.
Yeah.
It doesn't really hold up.
There's not
But
really
I
much.
think it's just an excuse to have the particular sort of iridescent art style, you know, the bubble version of cubism, right? Sorry, I'm not an artsy person, so I don't actually know the terms. But it like seemed like they were trying to put these elements in, and then also someone liked parkour. Parkour, you know, or Battle-Kour.
And in this, it's called Battle-Kour.
Battle-Kour. Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
I think we're just going to go into spoilers.
Sure. Yes.
I'm not going to give a rating until the end, though. I think it's pretty good, though. I mean, it was a fun time. It wasn't a deep movie or anything like that, but yeah, give it a watch. It'll be a very entertaining thing to watch with your friends. I'm not sure it's a date night movie per se or anything like that, but it'll be fine, probably.
It felt a little bit shallow, which makes it actually great for date night if you're interested in other things.
Sure, if you don't want to concentrate, this is a great movie. But yeah, let's go into spoilers. So, the bubbles are alien life forms, somehow. Well, one of the bubbles or two of the bubbles are.
Well, the bubbles are alien in origin at minimum. They are the spread of some kind of influence from an alien being. And they fell all over the world, apparently looking for a connection or something like that. One of the bubbles came into contact with what turns out to be our main character.
Yep.
And that caused the bubbles to focus on Tokyo Tower in particular, but the city of Tokyo.
Yeah, maybe
in
something
general.
he did irritated them or angered them.
I think
Seems-
he made a connection. It wasn't that it angered them, that a connection was made, and that formed the, like, trap him in there sort of thing.
I mean, he definitely said something I did angered them. But
Well, he felt that way.
He felt that way,
But
yeah.
when we got the flashback at the end of the movie, they came into contact, and that caused the thing.
yeah.
It wasn't that he angered them. It was just that their contact created
And
this
then
situation.
5 years after this, he is doing Battle-Kour things in...
Competitive parkour in the
Competitive
ruins
parkour.
of Tokyo.
Yeah. And he has
Where-
a weird hearing disorder, which helps him do parkour somehow.
So our boy is hypersensitive to sound. He has to wear headphones, and he's afraid of loud noises at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
This is meant to represent his fear of working with other people or opening his heart up. Because later on in this, when he finally learns to trust someone, he drops his headphones while running. And that's representing him opening up.
Or something.
Or
So,
something.
I mean, as Goku would say, he's got bat vision, which I don't see how that helps you do parkour.
Well,
But he's really good at parkour because of his hearing.
he's quite
And
good
that's
at parkour.
that's the movie logic, and we're sticking with it.
Well, no, but remember, the super hearing lets him hear which bubbles are solid and which are not. So
Okay.
the other people tried to jump on bubbles, and one of them fell straight through one.
Sure.
Whereas he always knows which bubbles can support his weight. And as such, he has more footholds when he's running.
I guess there is maybe some logic to it, if we're willing to overlook a few things. There's like a theme of disability running through the movie as well.
Indeed.
So he has got a weird hearing disorder. Some guy is missing a leg. There is
For half of the movie, our main girl has one arm.
Uta, yeah.
he has
and
one
she can't-
arm and she can't speak very well.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is someone who can't speak at all and uses a voice synthesizer to be creepy. And there is a girl with like Asperger's whose role is kind of to be the older sister in the movie, I would say.
She mothers the crew to a certain extent, but there's also this. I didn't see it, but Dylan did. This element of her seeming to be into our main character.
Yes. But there's two people that are into the main character on the crew that are human anyway, right? So there's red-haired guy and older sister girl. I'm not going to remember the names or even try to remember them
No,
at this
no,
point.
that's fine. I thought
So,
the
well,
guy was into the older girl.
I also thought that, yeah.
And the reason he doesn't like main character is because older girl shows too much attention to main character.
No, not the older guy. Red-haired dude.
Oh.
Not the guy with the leg.
No, not the guy
like
with the leg. The redhead
b-boy dude. Yeah.
Yeah. Redhead dude is the, like, quote-unquote leader of this team.
Okay.
That guy is into older girl, and he's only anti our main character because
We saw a
the
different
mother
movie.
figure-
I mean, there was... Do you remember, like, the almost kiss scene there?
I remember they put their faces close to each other, but that's because they were parkouring so hard.
Okay.
It's
Sure. Right.
like that volleyball scene from Top Gun.
Yeah.
Talk about that too.
Yeah.
No, I am aware of what you are saying, but they never, like, blushed or anything. There was never a moment of, like, are they going to kiss? It was literally the one guy was throwing the other guy up.
Okay. That's fine. So, yeah, the main character's name is Hibiki, which means echo. And then the girl's name, he names her, which is kind of creepy when we think about it.
When you
Names
think
Uta,
about it,
which is song. Or to sing. But it's only creepy because of the way that Uta comes to be in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So Tokyo Tower is the nexus of the bubble. And it's got like a black hole, singularity, wormhole kind of thing.
It's got weird gravitic occurrences, according to the movie. But yeah, it's represented as there's like a black hole and a gas cloud.
Yeah, and it's
around it.
kind of keeping everything in stasis, it seems, maybe. Keeping bubble up.
It's preventing people from climbing the Tokyo Tower, firstly. But
Which
secondly,
is also kind of disintegrated and is being kept afloat, probably by the gravity.
effectively by the weird gravity, yeah. So the middle of the tower is completely destroyed.
And because it's hard to climb, people want to climb it. So that's basically why the Battle-Kour people are there.
To a certain extent, yeah. And Shin, the oldest member, this guy who's not part of the team but like a judge character, previously attempted to climb the tower. He's great at it, but he broke his leg and had it removed.
Yeah.
So he's one of our characters that has a
And
disability.
so Hibiki tries to climb it, falls off, gets stuck in a train car, which is somehow still moving. Underwater train car.
Yeah, that's like swimming around like a whale.
Yeah. Or like something from a Ghibli movie.
Yeah.
And he's drowning, so he breathes out a bubble. And one of the sentient bubbles tries to rescue him. And it is intercepted by his own breath bubble. And then that bubble kind of like combines in a way that is reminiscent of biology class diagrams, splits into smaller bubbles, and forms a girl in a sailor uniform that you'll be able to see in the picture of the podcast.
So I want to point out the reason why she's in that particular outfit is because there was a poster of a girl in that outfit where she was forming.
Yeah,
So it's trying to say that this is a thing that formed with outside influences, but she herself doesn't know what any of that means, sort of.
Yeah, and it's such a mishmash of bits of clothing. She clearly
It is
doesn't
a
really
complete mishmash.
understand what it's for or why it's there. So she rescues him somehow and discovers that she can't physically touch him after the initial rescue, right?
His skin. She can touch his clothes, but not his skin.
Yeah.
Because he is salt and she is a snail.
Yeah, or they're the same. It's like time cop logic, you know. You can't touch your time clone.
Can't touch yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And so begins the Little Mermaid analogies, right? So the Little Mermaid rescues the sailor,
Prince.
turns out to be the prince. But she doesn't have a voice initially. Although this one does slowly learn how to speak, right?
She gets stories read to her, in particular The Little Mermaid.
Exactly. So that's her only frame of reference. And yeah, it begins a weird kind of romance between Hibiki and this bubble, this alien bubble. That is kind of partially also him. But that kind of takes it's part of the story, but it's not the main thrust of the story at the same time. Because there's an
Their
evil ninja
relationship-
clan. Undertaker. Who's stealing the older sister character for some reason.
Makoto, the older sister character, gets kidnapped in order to get our team, Blue Flames, to have a match against Undertaker so that their popularity can rise on their social media platform. I wish I was kidding.
They really
Well,
tried really
I mean,
hard
that's
with
the
this
only-
plot, didn't they?
That's the only like believable, realistic part of the.
Of
movie.
course it would be streamed. You're right, Dylan.
Well, not only that, people do stupid ass shit for that kind of thing.
Dance for it.
People do really silly things for
They
streaming.
promise,
videos.
win or lose, that they're going to let her go. It's not a problem. The only reason they kidnapped her is to force the current best team to face them. Because they have a new tech, shoes that shoot water out of them, that they believe will
Sponsored by.
catapult them literally into the lead and to take over the popularity ranking. Yeah, they kidnap a girl and they leave her on top of a giant sea crane that's way up in the sky. And then they're like, sure, win or lose, you can take her back. We only did this so that we could fuck you up.
Right. And then, I don't know. So at that point, like they've been romancing each other for like a few weeks at this point. She's learned how to speak Japanese because, real easy language, I guess.
And he's opened up a little bit. He's shown her his secret garden.
But during that time, so he kind of learns to trust her. And he has to do like a weird maneuver with her to free the older sister character. And it's no other human she can't touch, right? Like she's perfectly fine, it seems, with anyone else.
With any other character, yeah.
But he has to like hold her by the arm and like catapult her up so she can get to the flag. That's the objective in this, which completely destroys her arm. In a way that is kind of gruesome if you think about it a bit, but it's just bubbles as well.
I do want to say there's no gore.
Yeah.
Her arm vanishes into a puff of bubbles, but when you see her moving without her arm, it is disjointed and kind of like it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know how to feel about the end of the movie. I think it was a great action scene, but also quite upsetting at the same time.
So the idea of sacrifice for victory and everything really comes into play.
Yeah.
I feel like some of the themes and ideas that they had going were very interesting, but the way it was executed just doesn't give you a chance to buy into it, if that makes any kind of sense.
Yeah, there's very little continuation of theme. So each scene might have like a deeper theme. Like for me, at the ending sort of scene that we're talking about was very much about like the
Just
cyclical nature of
maybe just
creation and destruction.
If we just describe it a bit. So she's kind of been called home by her alien brethren or something. That's what it seems. The red bubbles are calling her and she's the blue bubbles. Metaphors. But she definitely wants to like kiss Hibiki, right? That's like the thing she wants to do before she dies or has to go back to
And
bubble
be
form.
held by him. Yeah.
And so she's willing to do that, but it would be, one imagines like kissing someone made of lava, because it just slowly disintegrates her. And
that's kind of the idea, that her love is enough to make her want to do it despite the pain.
right.
Well, that and I think from what she was saying at the time, that like it was her getting to actually live, right? Was being able to experience that was the whole point of existing in the first place, even if it means that she then ceases to exist. Rather than being in that null space of, okay, you exist, but you don't get to experience the things that make existing worth it.
Sure.
Anyway, that's like
Anyway.
encapsulated in one scene. It's not like
That's the
continued.
No.
It's not a continued theme throughout the whole movie.
Most of it
right?
is just Little Mermaid references and parkour.
same as
There's something I noticed, right? So this did have a theatrical release, of course, in Japan, but also in Berlin,
Oh,
where,
I didn't know that.
where the Little Mermaid comes from. So I don't know. Maybe there was just like a real love of that story for one of the authors here, and then they really wanted that to come throughout the whole thing. I don't suppose there's anything wrong with that. It's just a little bit corny, I guess.
I could live with corny. For me, the problem was that it was underdeveloped. Like, anytime I was going to care about something, we changed subject.
Yeah, I think maybe you see it's just difficult to justify because it feels like an artistic movie, right? Like it's not there to try and make this whole coherent story that it's artistic as it is. It's not meant to be a coherent thing. It's again a canvas with which to kind of paint all these different artistic facets onto, and that kind of thing is great for a film festival where you're kind of looking for that sort of story. Whether or not it's succeeding at that is a different question. I feel like I'm not qualified to say. I really don't feel like I'm qualified to speak to that. But I definitely, it's not a very coherent story to pull off it being like a holistic masterpiece for me.
I think the problem is it was being too many things. So they wanted to make a sort of PG movie. Then they wanted to make a kind of a heart-wrenching love story at the same time. And they wanted to make an action-packed freedom of movement, motion, what do you call it? Like free motion kind of experience. Where just the spectacle of the thing is supposed to be what draws you to it. I think if they just stuck to one of those, it would have been probably much better than them dividing their efforts between those things.
Or at least limiting the number of things they added in so they could build a story that kind of held itself together rather than falling apart. But I guess, from a meta perspective, that kind of goes with that ending theme, right? They built this bubble, but it can't sustain all the things they've put inside.
Wow.
And it just pops.
There you go, Dylan.
Yeah. Can I get
Bring it all together.
My metric essay ready?
You get at least 80 for that.
Probably.
But I was just thinking, like, they're main characters, because they spend so much time with them not really being real people, don't really get too much sympathy from, I don't know, at least from me. Because the one is an alien that doesn't speak for half of the movie. Hard to feel on her side for some things, right? Because it sort of clearly seems she doesn't really understand what's going on around her in the beginning. And then the other guy just is so withdrawn that it's also difficult to empathize with him. I liked a lot of the side characters. I liked the weird older sister character. She was fun. In that kind of pushy Japanese lady way.
I think specifically one of the problems is that us as an audience was always going to be a hard sell on anything involving one-day romances or anything like that. Because we're very closed off on our emotions for the most part. Letting someone in is just not something we would do easily. So watching these teenagers have a romance over like 3 days was always going to bounce off of us to a certain extent.
I don't know. I mean, I
never bought into the romance. That's I think the hardest thing.
Which you were kind of just forced to assume was there. I think there's a more interesting story centering around the creepy girl with the voice synthesizer, if she was a girl. Kind of has like a boy girl kind of
one of the Undertakers.
Yeah. I mean, that would have been an interesting person as a replacement for your doesn't speak main character. You know what I mean? Why don't we have a weird story if we can't have a good story?
Hmm. That is an option, but it would not be this weird thing.
And then, unlike, I mean, maybe do you think maybe there's a bit of Netflix getting involved with the way the story played out?
No,
Yeah,
No?
I didn't
They-
get that feeling either.
they weren't involved with production.
Okay. Were they just
They're
distribution?
Only distribution. Yeah,
I mean, they might have had some influence, you know, to say like
because
these are
Warner
things.
Brothers.
These are
were the
things.
producer.
Okay, well, and then maybe Warner Brothers got involved a little bit too much in Wit's way. It just feels like the ending was a bit too. I don't know, like mass appealy.
Yeah, yeah, it does. But I think that is endemic of us not caring about any of the storylines happening enough.
Or maybe people in general, and you know that sort of thing. It just, I don't know. Japanese movies tend to end on a more depressing note, even if it's a happy ending. Like Tokyo being rebuilt in the end seems strange to me. Because normally in these sort of like the moral of these Japanese kind of tales is, oh, Tokyo was destroyed, so I guess we'll move on with our lives learning from this and maybe not do it because that was a lesson
Well-
we need to remember.
I mean, the end of this movie is our boy's an orphan and everyone that he has become friends with has left.
Yeah. Like, well, sort of. We see the bubble
that's-
still there.
I thought the bubble popped. I
He
could be
was
wrong.
it was literally the last shot of the movie. It was him hanging out with the bubble.
Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
I thought you meant the Tokyo bubble.
Oh, no.
Yes, so he has a companion, but the entire sport thing that he was doing ended.
Well, they were still doing it. They were just doing it in like a
Professional
construction yard
settings.
that was,
Hmm.
you know, rather than a weird what's that, water world? Kind of wasteland thing?
Yeah. So I think that this was about how he was holding on to his trauma, and finally accepting it allowed him to move forward with his life. And
Sure.
in a weird way, the entire world moved forward when he let go as well.
I guess so. Well, he found something to latch onto and then it left him. Thus proving that you should never form any relationships because they just cause pain. On that note, I think I give it a 6 out of 10. I
was
had
going to say-
fun, but I don't think it was a good movie or a great movie. Let me put it that way.
I'm going to give this a 5.5 out of 10. It wasn't a waste of time and it functioned as a movie, but it failed to capture me for a long period of time.
It's like the
I still consider it okay, but just not very good.
it only skated through as not a waste of time for you by 0.5 from our previous conversations.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Well, below 5 is a waste of time. 5 is I don't mind having spent the time, but I don't think I enjoyed myself.
Okay. Yeah, I am a very story-driven person in terms of the things I consume. So having a story that couldn't hold itself together is probably a major negative for me. I didn't hate it either, but I wasn't impressed at all.
Oh.
Would I recommend it to someone? Only if you really want like animated artsy things. Kind of.
You know, Dylan, something we forgot is that every 5 minutes this changed genre. I don't
Yeah,
know if you
yeah.
remember.
I do.
Like we were just commenting every time it changed like genre. It was like this is the action bit, this is the isekai
The
part,
weird
this
romancy
is
bit.
the so on and so forth. Every now and then it was a different movie, and
Yep.
we were surprisingly fine with it. We must have been in a pretty good mood that day somehow or the other.
Yeah.
We were in a bit of chaos. All of our plans shifted very slightly.
Yeah.
Mostly because we were just willing to change. We were willing to be malleable. I think by the time we got into the movie, we were just ready to get something done. And
And the pizza was
I don't
pretty
know.
good.
yeah, the pizza was great, honestly. But I mean, from my perspective, the score was good and the animation was good. The only thing that let it down was the story, which is kind of important and necessary.
I kind of didn't notice the music, to be perfectly honest.
There were about 4 action scenes in this movie, and through all 4 action scenes, the beat and the tempo of the music was very helpful for making you feel interested in what was happening on the screen.
Dylan was pointing out earlier, there's literally one of the songs is called Nair Summer.
Perfect.
They're all very literal, the song names. One is just Parkour.
Parkour.
Yeah, there would have been a fairly significant song called Parkour because we had 2 major action scenes with one soundtrack. I'm assuming that would be Parkour.
There are 3 other songs called Bubble.
Great. How am I supposed to differentiate?
Right. Well, one has a capital, one is all capitals, and one is lowercase.
I'm sure Bubble, all capitals, would have been what was playing when he was doing the final.
I'm sure the music editor knows the difference. Anyway, I think that'll do it from us this week. Next week, we might be doing an anime roundup of our predictions of what's going to be good or not, I think.
For the next season. Yep.
Things are starting to come through at this point, but not everything is out yet. And anime is doing like a weird thing at the moment where some studios are releasing things off schedule, like kind of halfway through.
But like almost 2 weeks off each other.
But there was also like, what's it called in English? Kubo Won't Let Me Be a Mob or something like that?
Yeah. Kubo, yeah. Won't Let Me Be Invisible, yeah.
Won't Let Me Be Invisible, yeah. So that one was released 2 or 3 weeks later than everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And then they released 6 episodes, and then it stopped for a season, and then next season they released another 6 episodes.
I think that's kind of like what's happening with Isekai Oji-san, where there's animation studio problems.
But okay, so maybe it's just that studio, because there was another thing they were making at the same time, and they initially did the same thing, but they haven't released the last 6 of that season.
I'm aware. I think COVID is still working its magic.
Yeah,
I know that sounds crazy. But I think
well, I mean, you watch videos
full.
of Japan, and then people are still walking around with masks and things. So,
but I also think people are just not filling positions.
Yeah, I mean, there might just not be anyone to do the work.
Fill the positions, yeah.
And there's only so many people in Korea that can take up the slack.
Which is kind of horrifying in a way for the anime industry.
I mean, they're gonna have to start like outsourcing to Western countries pretty soon.
God, I hope not.
I hear Australia's got a pretty good animation thing going on. That's probably where Yakitori comes from. We should speak about that
Chris,
at some point.
They might have to do the unspeakable. Pay their animators.
And competitive international rates.
What studio can survive such a thing?
No, they'll just go to Vietnam. I'm sure that.
Yeah, that's also true.
Yeah. All right, on that note, ciao for now, guys.
Bye.
Bye.